Good afternoon, Evil, and I will tell you one story of a good viewing. He arrived at the old house just as the sun dipped below the horizon. The once gleaming windows were now dull and gray, their glass streaked with what looked like rain, though no storm had passed. A chill crawled up his spine as he stepped onto the porch, each board creaking in protest. The front door stood slightly ajar, as though inviting him inside and warning him at the same time. The moment he crossed the threshold, the air turned impossibly cold. The door slammed shut behind him with a bone-rattling bang, and the sudden darkness swallowed the narrow hallway. He fumbled for his flashlight, its beam trembling as he switched it on. Light spilled over a long corridor lined with faded wallpaper, once cheerful floral patterns now curling and peeling, revealing walls stained with age and neglect. Under his feet, the floor slats groaned in uneven rhythm as if the house itself were breathing. He took a tentative step forward. His beam swept along the walls, where portraits hung at uneven intervals. In each, a stern-faced matriarch stared down, her eyes following him. Fear knotted in his gut. He passed one frame, then two, but when he glanced back, the third portrait had vanished. A quick spin of the beam revealed only blank drywall. He swallowed hard. The house was already playing tricks. Turning a corner, he found himself in a spacious parlor with a grand piano, its glossy black surface now dulled by dust. A single piano stool sat askew, and as he approached, the keys pressed down by unseen weight emitted a discordant chord. He jumped back. The stool spun itself in a slow, mocking circle as if inviting him to sit. He fled, the echo of ghostly notes trailing after him. Breathing hard, he reached a staircase. The banister snakes upward into darkness. He began his ascent, each step shifting beneath his boots. Sometimes the stair rose higher than the last, sometimes it dipped, trapping his foot. When he finally reached the landing, the hall beyond stretched longer than it had on the ground floor, its end disappearing into blackness. He clicked on a second flashlight. Its beam revealed dozens of identical doors, each painted the same peeling white. His pulse pounded, every instinct screamed to go back, but the stair had vanished behind him. He hesitated, then chose a random door. Inside was a nursery, cracked wallpaper showing faded animal prints, a rocking horse in one corner, its head turned toward him. He shined his light over the room. The crib's mobile slowly spun, though no breeze stirred. As he stepped forward, the mobile emitted a gentle tinkling like laughter, childish, innocent, then warped into a mocking taunt. He swallowed, backing toward the door. In the gloom beyond the threshold, he thought he saw motion. A small hand, pale and bony, pressed against the glass of the hallway window. He blinked. The hand was gone. He stumbled into another corridor. The walls here were slick as if coated in varnish. His sneakers squeaked. The corridor bent sharply. He rounded the corner, and the hallway had changed again. What had been a series of narrow hallways was now a vast atrium dominated by a chandelier of tarnished crystal that refracted his light into dancing shapes on the walls. Those shapes flickered like specters, forming faces that screamed in silent agony. He raised his flashlight higher, the faces dissolved. Panic rose. He sprinted down a flight of stairs that hadn't been there moments before. Behind him, he heard the heavy thud of something massive dropping, as if the house were rearranging itself. He reached the bottom, where a kitchen lay, tile floor stained with dark, crusted spills. Cabinets gaped open like screaming mouths. He darted between them, searching for an exit, but every cabinet door he opened revealed only more darkness, empty, yawning, infinite. Then he heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from behind him. He spun, flashlight beam grazing a figure at the far end of the kitchen. Tall, featureless, its head tipped as though examining him. He flicked the light again, and the figure was gone. A low thrum began, vibrating through the floorboards. The tiles shifted beneath him, cracking like eggshells. He jumped back onto the cracked linoleum just as half the kitchen sank into the ground. He stumbled into a hallway lined with mirrors. His reflection stared back, pale, shaking, but then its eyes filled with tears of blood. He froze. His reflection lifted one hand, beckoning him closer. Summoning courage, he stepped forward, and the mirror shattered, cutting his reflection into 1,000 jagged shards. In the shards, dozens of eyes stared at him, each mouth open in silent scream. Heart racing, he tore himself away and ran, doors materializing and vanishing in his path. At last he crashed through a door into a room full of clocks. Every timepiece ticked in frantic discord. The pendulums swung wildly, the display clock's hands spun so fast they blurred. He felt the weight of time itself pressing on him. One clock chimed 13, then 14, then a deafening cacophony as all clocks chimed at once. He covered his ears, dropping to his knees. The chimes stopped abruptly. In the silence, a single grandfather clock chimed once, then its door swung open to reveal a stairwell spiraling down into darkness. His only option. He took a deep breath and descended, the air growing colder with each step. At the bottom, he found a small steel door, its surface etched with glyphs he couldn't read. As he reached for the handle, the house groaned above as though angry. The handle turned in his hand with a wet, squelching sound. He pushed open the door and the light vanished. The stench of rot and mildew filled his nostrils. Beyond the threshold lay a pitch-black tunnel. He stepped forward and the door slammed shut behind him. The sound echoed, then faded into silence. Ahead, unseen, something scrabbled against stone, nails clicking, dragging. He raised his flashlight. The beam illuminated damp walls covered in scratches, hundreds of them clawed by something desperate to escape. A whisper slid through the tunnel, "You shouldn't have come." He swallowed, heart hammering. The tunnel ahead forked left and right. He knew whichever path he chose, the house would change again, waiting to greet him with horrors no human was meant to face. And somewhere above, the house was reorganizing itself, planning its next trap. He took the left fork and the darkness swallowed him. He pressed forward into the tunnel, each step echoing against the damp stone. The beam of his flashlight wavered, casting long, quivering shadows that seemed to stretch and contort. The air was thick with moisture and the stale odor of decay. His breath came in ragged gasps, the walls closed in as he walked, narrowing until he had to turn his shoulders to slip past. After several minutes, by then he had long since lost any sense of time, the tunnel opened into a vast cavern. The floor was slick with black water that lapped at his boots, sending icy shivers up his spine. In the center of the cavern, a single pool lay perfectly still, its surface like polished glass. He knelt at its edge, wiping away the grime, and to his horror, saw not his own reflection but a pale, gaunt face staring back at him. Its eyes were hollow voids and its lips moved in silent agony. He stumbled backward, tripping over a rock and falling into the water. The chill shot through his clothes and he lurched out, water dripping from him like tears. Behind him, the cavern's far wall split open with a thunderous crack. The stone peeled back as though it were paper, revealing a narrow, winding staircase carved directly into living rock. No handrail, no banister, just unforgiving stone steps descending further. From somewhere deep above, a resonant tolling began, a deep, sonorous bell that vibrated in his chest. Each toll felt like the blow of a hammer to his heart. He climbed the stairs, each rung slick and worn. Every now and then, the bell would halt, and in the silence he thought he heard shuffling, soft scraping sounds, something following him just beyond the flashlight's reach. When the bell resumed, it sounded distant as though coming from another world entirely. At last, the stairs ended in a heavy iron door. Rust gnawed at its edges and streaks of something dark ran down its face. He reached out and pushed it open and immediately regretted it. The room beyond was illuminated by a single flickering lantern hanging from the ceiling, its light too weak to banish the oppressive darkness. In the center of the room stood a massive mirror framed with jagged wrought iron. The glass was clouded and warped and the lantern's light danced across its surface in maddening patterns. He stepped toward it, compelled by some unseen force. As he drew nearer, the lantern went out, plunging him into abyssal black. He cursed and swung the flashlight beam, the glare struck the mirror. In its depths, he saw himself, or rather, he saw what he feared he had become. His skin was ashen, his clothes torn and filthy, his eyes sunken and lifeless. Behind him, something swayed, a figure draped in tattered cloth, its face obscured by shadow. When he spun, the room was empty. He turned back to the mirror. The figure was closer now, raising a bony hand. He dropped the flashlight as the reflection lunged forward, shattering the glass. The shards rained down with a metallic clatter, embedding themselves in the floor. In the chaos, he felt a cold breath on his neck and heard a whisper, "Stay with us." With a guttural cry, he flung open another door and stumbled through. He dropped onto cold stone covered in dust. Before him lay a long hallway lined with doors of different shapes and sizes, arched, square, oval. The flickering torchlight was mounted at irregular intervals, leaving large gaps of absolute darkness. Desperate, he dashed forward, yanking open the first door he reached. Inside was a conservatory, shattered glass ceilings arched overhead, and exotic plants lay half-rotted in overgrown pots. Vines crept along the walls, their leaves sharp and thorned. As he stepped in, the vines twined around his ankles, pulling him down. He struggled, adrenaline surging, and managed to break free, ripping through the thick tendrils. The plants shrieked, a high-pitched, gurgling sound that reverberated through the glass dome. The shards of ceiling tinkled as they shifted, then rained down in glittering death. He sprinted out, the shards narrowly missing him, embedding themselves in the stone floor. The hallway beyond was longer than before. It split into two paths, one sloping uphill, slick and steep, the other descending into absolute darkness. He hesitated only a moment before choosing uphill, pressing his back against the wall as he climbed, hand over his chest where his heart thumped wildly. The corridor ended abruptly in a circular room dominated by a colossal music box. It towered over him, its gilded panels etched with dancing figures. A crank protruded from its side, turned halfway, then left. He approached it warily. The moment he touched the crank, it spun on its own, and a slow, haunting lullaby wafted through the chamber. The dancing figures on the panels blurred into life, tiny porcelain ballerinas gyrating in grotesque, jerky movements. He tried to pull away, but something compelled him closer. As he watched, the dancers' faces, once cherubic, morphed into grimaces. Their porcelain cracked, oozing a dark fluid that dripped onto the wood. The music quickened and distorted, the melody warping into a screech. He screamed and yanked the crank out, silencing the box. Instantly, the room plunged into silence. The door behind him slammed shut. Shadows pooled in the corners, coalescing into a mass. Before he could react, the music box opened and hundreds of tiny figures poured forth, porcelain minions with hollow eyes and chipped smiles. They advanced in endless procession, their tiny feet clattering like bone on stone. He backed into the door, fumbling with the handle until it creaked open. The porcelain swarm spilled into the hallway, their feet echoing all around him. He ducked through, slamming the door and hearing the porcelain battering against it in futile fury. Gasping, he leaned against the cold wood, listening to the rushing of his blood. The house, it seemed, had one final mockery in store. He stepped through the doorway and found himself back in the atrium, the chandelier above him swaying. The same tortured faces from before glared down as if in judgment. His flashlight flickered. In the dim light, he saw a new sight, the front door of the house, wide open, a sliver of moonlight beckoning beyond. Relief surged, then froze when he noticed the threshold was now embedded in the far wall of the atrium, miles away from where he'd first entered. Trembling, he ran toward it, the echo of his own footsteps chasing him. Just as his hand touched the doorframe, the house groaned with a dreadful sentience. The door warped, bending like soft wax. He yanked his hand back. The threshold shimmered, revealing not the outside world but the room where he had first awakened in the corridor of peeling wallpaper. The door swung open on its own accord. There was no escape. He stumbled into that hallway once familiar, now alien. Behind him, the door slammed shut. The wallpaper curled tighter, trapping him. Portraits shifted on their own hooks, the matriarch's eyes glowed with malevolence. Ahead, the corridor stretched impossibly long, doors lined up like teeth waiting to bite. He realized, with a chill that froze his blood, the truth: the house never let anyone go. It only rearranged itself for the next victim. And he was trapped, to wander its shifting halls for all eternity, lost, hunted, and unendingly afraid. The lanterns in the corridor flared to life, as if celebrating his fate, and somewhere deep within the walls, the house sighed, a contented, hungry sigh that promised infinite horrors yet to come. Thank you very much. See you all in the next video.